weekend. For a moment, I thought we were blacked out.
Oh yeah, no, it took a while for our images to come up on the screen.
Okay.
So and now we're here. We can say hi to everybody. You go first tonight.
Well, hi. I'm Joe Rayo, Fios One News, Lower Hudson Valley, accompanied by my good friend Joe Ciaffi.
Yes. Oh, okay. Thanks. I had a moment there. I just kind of faded. Joe Ciaffi, Fios One News, Long Island and New Jersey. We somehow stumbled our way into a Thursday. You know these. One of the things about these storms, Joe, in my view, is I find you wind up working at least as hard, and in some cases sometimes harder, with these 1 and 2 inch snowfalls than you do with the 1 foot ones. Because at least with the 1 foot ones, you just kind of say, okay, it's a foot or more. You're not basically trying to grab every and struggle for every snowflake that's out there.
Well, you know, Joe, the thing about this winter, at least in the immediate tri-state metropolitan area, has been that virtually every winter storm we've dealt with, we've been unable to hold on to the snow from start to finish. It's always been, we started off as snow, and then all of a sudden it changes over, not all of a sudden, but gradually it changes over to sleet, ice, even a bit of rain, and that's made for a very problematic.
In post-analysis, the storm from last Tuesday and then what transpired yesterday, really they were, except for the fact that some areas, you know, the snow areas in terms of accumulation might have been slightly different this time around. It was almost was identical,
right.
and the fact that. With the kind of a weaker version of it this time around, it kept that 32-degree line. It didn't fly up like the GFS model had flying that.
Yeah.
I mean that just was wrong. And while the NAM might have been overdone with a lot of the precip in terms of what was supposed to fall as snow, it did actually get the temperature profiles pretty well.
Right.
It was insisting that bottom layer of the atmosphere was going to have a really tough time.
And it's amazing is that we have been seeing what we've been referring to periodically as the warm nose, that the higher levels of the atmosphere have warmed very quickly in some of these storms. Meanwhile, the lowest levels of the atmosphere are down by the surface, have remained stubbornly cold, and that is what has led to the icing problems. Of course, last night, now people are probably wondering, why didn't we have a Joe and Joe last night?
Because we were tired.
Well, partially tired, but also partially because I left early, because we were watching a broad area of moderate rainfall that was moving in from Pennsylvania, New Jersey. I live, as many of you know, up in Putnam County. I saw the temperatures were in the upper 20s. I saw that area of rain moving in. I said, I better get out of here as quick as possible to try to beat that. I didn't end up beating it. I ended up being like 10 minutes away from my house when the moderate rains came. When I finally got home last night and my wife opened the door to look into the garage, she had a stunned look on her face because she couldn't believe it. The car, my car, looked like an ice cube. It fully was coated over
from the it accreted ice with the rain.
Yeah,
really.
Yeah,
that's amazing.
And the most amazing thing, Joe, is that the hood. You would expect at least the hood would be free of any kind of
but it wasn't.
Even the hood was coated. It was incredible.
See, I went the other way. So when I left here, it was 30. Well, the car thermometer said 32, but the air temperature was actually 30 or 31, and I could actually see like a shine on the roadways.
Right.
But thankfully, there was a lot of salt down, so that helped. And all I kept thinking was, okay, once I get to New Rochelle and the Bronx, I should be okay. And then I got up to 32, 33, and the roads, the main roads were wet, so I had no problems, getting home on Long Island.
Right.
But this system for this weekend, Joe, important in that, well, first off, it's pretty much an all-rain affair, unless it gets in here Saturday night and some spots up in the Hudson Valley maybe get a little freezing drizzle for about 5-10 minutes.
Just a touch.
That's it.
We're not talking about anything monstrous or major, but it does look like that at least the first half of Sunday is going to be taken out by showery rains. Still kind of debating whether or not it might be worthwhile to even mention thunder or lightning on Sunday, because it is going to be kind of a pattern where we're going to get in briefly into a warm wedge and temperatures will probably fly upward.
Well, you wonder though, because the at least from the standpoint of what the GFS did today, it kind of backed off a bit on the temperatures. It had 60s back yesterday, and now it's more like low and mid 50s. And I was looking at how that warm front should get through in theory, and yet you wonder whether it may just get pinched off. The other thing is, going into Sunday morning, we're going to have south-southeast winds here, which is not a warm wind.
Right.
And I wonder how much time there'll be when the winds try to go to southwest and the cold front comes through and then you got showers. There may not be a whole lot of time for temperatures to make progress much beyond, say, the low and mid-50s.
We'll see. We're heading into that time of the year now, by the way, where our friends on Long Island sometimes will be sitting in temperatures in the 40s, and meanwhile they're hearing about places like Poughkeepsie
in the 70s.
In the 70s
or even the 80s.
So it's getting in.
Nothing like that sea breeze, or either the sea breeze or the backdoor cold front.
Right.
Was it last year we had this incredibly wicked backdoor cold front that came through? I think it was in April, and the temperature, made this huge drop, but we had 50-mile-an-hour winds with it, which was that was really odd.
And I still remember 1976, Easter of 1976, when it hit 96 in Central Park, and then
try making a lasagna with that.
The charging cavalry, a backdoor front came down, I think, the following day or Tuesday, and immediately everything dropped very, very quickly. So
the important thing about the storm that's producing this, Mr. Rayo, is that it actually is going to be ushering in what I think is going to be a temporary pattern change that could last 10 days to 2 weeks. And I think this is going to be the last window of opportunity for snow lovers to try to get something in that I-95 corridor, which has been, Central Park went to double digits now with 10 inches for the season, but the overall pattern has been with a strong Pacific jet, the ridge in the east, the trough in the west. Eventually we're going to go back to that, but I think we're getting this kind of 10-day to 2-week relaxation of the pattern. And this storm, by the way, I don't remember the last time I've seen more winter storm warnings in the state of Arizona than I have here. It's crazy.
It is incredible. I mean, we're talking about virtually 75% of the state of Arizona in some kind of a winter advisory or winter storm watch or whatever.
No, winter storm warnings. They're all winter storm warnings.
All winter storm warnings. Yeah, that's right. Well, what about that blue down there? Is that?
That's on the New Mexico side.
No, this blue, that light blue,
that's on the New Mexico. Oh, that?
Yeah.
That may actually be. That's around Phoenix. That's a flood advisory because it's been pouring rain there.
Incredible.
I pulled up a few live streams today, but I wanted to bring this up. Okay, so this is, by the way, the second day of these snowfall accumulations. It's got Flagstaff and Sedona. So a lot of these places have already put down 1 to 2 feet. So the snow amounts that you're seeing are in addition to what's fallen. And by the way, the areas from eastern Colorado all the way up into Wisconsin, those are preemptive winter storm watches that are up when this storm comes out. And I think we're probably going to see blizzard warnings at some point for some spots of the upper Midwest. But I just want to show everybody this snowfall forecast map from I'm not sure which weather service office this is, but it is in the part of Arizona that's getting hit fairly hard with snow. I mean, there are places here like Sedona, which the lower elevations are seeing snows that they normally don't see.
Right.
And Sedona, which when I looked at the OBS, had to have picked up at least a foot of snow already. They're going for another 6 to 10 on top of what is already on the ground, and Flagstaff's got to have almost 2 feet on the ground, and they're going for another 9 to 13.
Right.
So these snow amounts here, when they're done, are going to be in feet. 2 to 3 feet.
Incredible. And I have been to Arizona, and I've been to Sedona and Flagstaff, and I can't even imagine all of that snow. And especially really this late. Well, no, it's not late in the season. It is still February. But you would not expect to see this, and this has already happened.
That is that is some incredibly cold trough that in the West. That deep trough in the West has been insane.
If it's not Seattle, it's Phoenix or Flagstaff.
Well, here's Flagstaff right now at 21. Show everybody there. With the moderate snow. But when I pulled up the 3-day history.
Freezing fog. Let's not forget the freezing fog, right?
Exactly. But here's the 3-day history of the observations. It started from 1:57 in the morning was the first observation of moderate snow. Okay, and actually light snow began there back on last night at 6:57 p.m. Right. So it's been snowing there now for 26 hours straight, and since 2 o'clock in the morning, or this is a 2 o'clock in the morning observation, it's been either moderate or heavy snow. So 2 p.m. is 12, 7, almost 20 hours of moderate to heavy snow, hour after hour after hour. You got to figure that's got to be 1 to 2 inches an hour. So they got to have 2 feet. They got to have at least 2 feet on the ground. These are incredible observations. And Flagstaff is. I just want to see what their elevation.
They're high, Joe.
They're 7,000 feet up.
They're up. In fact, one of the great observatories in the United States, Lowell Observatory, where the astronomer made observations back in the early part of the 20th century of Mars. He thought Mars was inhabited, by the way. But I mean, 7,000 feet up. There are 2 great observatories. There's one in the northern part, which is Flagstaff, and one at Kitt Peak in Arizona, and they're fairly high up as well in southern Arizona, just outside of Tucson. So
Sedona is 4,800 feet,
right?
And they're 32. And when we look at their, the weather history of their observations today, same thing. I mean, they started snowing at 10:35 last night, and then they went to heavy snow.
Thunder. They had thunder too.
And thunder, yes. They went to heavy snow at 6:15 this morning, moderate to heavy snow. So it's been there 15 hours.
So 1 to 2 inches an hour, maybe.
And by the way, they even changed over to rain for a couple hours. Now they're back to snow again. That's just crazy. This is really crazy stuff.
Yeah,
it is, because I'm trying to remember. I can't even remember the last time.
I can't remember either. Every once in a while you'll hear about, there's some snow. That snow fell in parts of Arizona or up in the mountains. But this is ridiculous. This is a full-scale, full-out winter storm that is just battering Arizona. And if it's not heavy snow, it seems to be heavy rain and flooding. What a wild situation.
Yeah, it is crazy. All right, let me bring up the GFS so we can get into this whole thing for this weekend, and how, again, as I said, this is going to bring a bit of a pattern. The primary pattern is what we've been in, and it's been going on for weeks now. It's going to relax, and you're going to get this break in that primary pattern. I think for 10 days or 2 weeks, and then it's going to go back.
The Climate Prediction Center, and those are the guys, the men and women who are responsible in that particular branch of NOAA to put out probabilities for precipitation and also temperature. And I mentioned to you, Joe, a little while ago, on the 8 to 14 day outlook. That's that goes out 2 weeks.
Yeah.
And it's very unusual when you see probabilities as high as 90%. But that's what they have, a 90% probability of below normal temperatures across Minnesota, eastern Dakotas, Wisconsin, parts of Iowa, and that then spreading out from there, I'd say about 75 or 80% of the country in that 8 to 14 day outlook
is projected
to be below average, below normal.
And this major storm that's going to be coming out of the southwest and heading up through the plains and into the Great Lakes is a powerhouse, and this is going to be the catalyst for the change. And for us, of course, I think Saturday's the better, obviously, of the 2 weekend days. We get whatever we get Saturday night into Sunday, which might even include a thunderstorm or two.
Right.
And then we're going to blow away Sunday night into Monday because the gradient is so very tight with this deep low.
Absolutely. On the GFS X extended tabular numbers for Monday, for wind, they have wind velocities of like 26 or 28 for at least for White Plains. And when you see that several days out, numbers that high, that in itself is unusual. So already I'm thinking that we might be looking at winds of maybe 40 to 50 miles an hour. We may very well go into wind advisories, or I don't know. I don't know exactly what the criteria is for each weather office.
Wind advisory, I think, is 40,
warnings,
and high wind is 50. I think that's what it is.
I don't know, but
so here's the NAM's look of that low running through the Great Lakes. It's fast moving. It's not a particularly wide area of snow that at least the NAM produces. But it gets to the same place as all the other models. And
now, presumably, if the NAM is right...
Here's our shot of rain.
If the NAM is right, then by 10 o'clock in the morning, it's done.
If the NAM is right.
And if the sun may come out.
That could very well be. And that might take it into the 60s.
That could
There's probably a second front back through here that comes in
you can see
late in the day. There's the little kinks there in the isobar. Okay, so on to the long range. Since we're talking about the pattern relaxing, so we'll bring it up. And I again, there's nothing specific that I would point to, Joe. I've been kidding around with some of my weather colleagues, you among them, how the models all seem to have their own version of the obligatory snowstorm in the 7 to 10 day time frame every day. It's there on one run, it's not there in the next. But the important thing is to get the flavor of what the pattern is doing, and that is here's your trough for tonight. That deep trough out in the west gets kicked out to the east, and if you see folks over Missouri, right in the middle of the picture, you got this tight-looking, wrapped-up upper low that heads up into the Great Lakes. This triggers all the changes both in the east and in the west. The trough in the west finally disappears, and you start to get more of a flow coming out of Canada over time. So the question is, with the trough temporarily getting out of the west, is there going to be something running around somewhere that could create a chance for one or two? Let's not even be greedy. Let's just shoot for one. That there might be one last opportunity for an area-wide accumulating snow of some kind. It's going to happen in this time frame. And
I hope that if it does happen, it's not going to be one of these, as we have seen so many times, situations where, again, the cold bottom part of the atmosphere and the upper part of the column warms quickly, and we lose the snow to ice and sleet.
Well, it may rhyme in some way.
It would be nice to have at least once
a clean event
from start to finish of snow.
Now, for those of you who a forecast shop, because everybody does, I'm going to show you two reasons why, if we wind up seeing something, it's likely to be more a minor event than a major event. The first problem is that while we're getting all of this going on over North America, which might make things a bit favorable, the jet stream in the Pacific is still a mess. And in fact, as we go into the first, after about the 2nd or 3rd of March, you start to see that fire hose again across the western and central Pacific. And it's pushing its way eastward, that really strong jet. So that's telling me that it's going to be a problem with regards to trying to see something other than, say, a minor event or something like what we've been seeing from time to time, which is these systems going by to our south. The other thing is, if you look on the Atlantic side, there's a problem as well with regards to East Coast storms, because also its own version of the fire hose, there's nothing out here. You got to have storms out there in the Atlantic to basically create a log jam. So if something's in the east, it's not going to go straight east. It's going to want to turn up northward and go to the path of least resistance. You're not going to do it with a jet stream like this. So it's going to take something coming down in the flow that's going to just kind of ripple along. And I would say that those kind of systems are not the types of systems that produce big events. So it's either going to be a couple of minor events or a moderate event or nothing at all.
Maybe it would be one of those fast-moving clippers that, instead of passing to our north and pulling in colder air behind it, maybe this is one of those diggers that digs down to, let's say, the Delmarva, gets its feet wet, suddenly pops, and there's just enough cold air over the northeast to provide us with a quickie 4 or 6 inch snowfall.
That would be how I would see it. I just can't see how we would
nothing
get
like
anything.
A classic coastal or Gulf system.
No, the jet stream patterns are just all wrong on in both oceans, And I don't care, what you might hear elsewhere with regards to that, because it's all out there, and
then again, the final knife to all the snow lovers out there. Here we have a clipper coming on down. It goes all the way down to Hatteras. It brings heavy snow to Virginia and North Carolina, and then suddenly and very quickly eases straight out east, and it misses us. Light snow gets up to about Cape May,
and done.
And that's it.
Yeah, there's so much grasping. There's so much grasping at straws at this point being done by the super weenies, let's call them. And I'm talking about the ones that are just like so obsessed with it that if you dare say something that goes against the it must snow every day orthodoxy, they get they just get incensed. And I have the patience of Job, but with this sort of stuff, and I'm as every much a snow lover as everybody else. But you know what? Enough. When it's not there, when the pattern's there, I'm the first one to say it, and I always get criticized.
I love these people who will show you, let's say, the European for like 7 or 8 days out. That indicates a massive snowstorm. They put it up on their Facebook page or they put it up on their websites, and they say, "Here, take a look at this." And then they come back with a little disclaimer like, "Now this is not a forecast."
Then why put it up?
Then why put it up? What's the
point?
And the fact that at this point in time, if they haven't learned already,
though they have,
when you post something that far out, and it's not going to happen.
There's nothing new here. There's nothing new here that wasn't going on last year or the year before or the year before or the year before that. Here's the thing. It's beginning to have, in my view, it's beginning to have impact on people's reactions to where now it is becoming almost unacceptable that a snowflake falling out of the sky even hits the ground. There has to be somebody there to catch the snowflake, because I can't drive in it, I can't walk in it, I can't go to school in it, I can't go to work in it. And it's getting really out of hand.
Now, how many times?
It's just getting out of hand.
How many times, not just you and I, but other forecasters on other broadcast outlets say about yesterday's system, say that this was a snow to ice and eventually it'll change over to sleet and rain. And how many of those broadcast outlets that these people work for started off with snow coming, it's a snowstorm, and they kept calling it a snowstorm.
Well, I stopped
the fact that it was going to change over.
Joe, I stopped an update that we were doing. We pre-taped some of the stuff. I shared this on my YouTube channel, but and I'm not blaming the anchors for this. It's just that because with newsrooms, the way they operate, it's amazing when you're in the communications business how little communicating that they do.
Right.
So, lead-ins are written from the perspective of someone who is not weather savvy. So I'll get a toss that referred to what we had yesterday as a snowstorm, and I stopped it and said, no, we can't use that word because that's not what it is. Mm-hmm. So you're looking at a minor event. And I'm not even. I kind of changed my view on this because with regards to the whole story with New Jersey and Governor Murphy and the states of emergency now for flurries or whatever. And I'm going to say this: I kind of understand where he's coming from, if only because of the fact that we've gotten to this point where it's just not. It's intolerable that it should snow at all, and there has to be some sort of government official or government bureaucracy that can prevent this from happening. And we got to. Can we be at least a little more understanding that perfection's just not in the cards, and sometimes weather is going to be a problem, and you got to sometimes deal with that. I don't know. It's just I'm just.
But
it's so hard to get a handle on the message anymore.
I think Governor Murphy has a north bias. Now, there was a storm a couple of weeks ago where southern New Jersey got something like on the order of 2 to 6 inches. I didn't hear anything about it. But as soon as it gets north, as soon as the area potential of snow goes north of Trenton and affects Newark and the the New York metropolitan area thing, all of a sudden everything is a state of emergency.
Is it a political question with regards to where your votes are? I don't know. Aside from the politics of it all, I kind of wish that we could get back, and not all of this is being driven, I believe, from that angle. It's also driven by people out there that, as you said, post up these maps publicly. It's one thing when they put them up in private groups where weather people are just kind of, gathering around and discussing things. That's one thing. But when you start to see this stuff going out there, and then my problem is that I have to deal with folks that I have to deal with who forecast shop.
Right.
Stop forecast shopping. There's no reason for you. If you're going to forecast shop, there's one place you can forecast shop that I will say that it's acceptable, okay? And it's not Costco, okay? That's for everything else. But the Weather Service. It's perfectly reasonable to go to the Weather Service and look at their forecast maps. I put them up. I put up my own. I put up the Weather Service's maps because I know everybody looks at them. And if you want to compare what I'm doing to what they're doing, and it's certainly reasonable to ask me and say, hey, Joe, how come your numbers are higher? Or how come your numbers are lower? And I'll give you the answer. But when you start pulling up all these odd different places, some of them reputable, some of them not so reputable, and some of them not reputable at all you wind up doing is confusing the message in your head, and you wind up thinking you're going to go to the apocalyptic, you're going to go to the natural apocalyptic conclusion. Stick to us, okay? Stick to us is the bottom line.
I tell people,
right?
I said, if you don't see it up there on my Facebook page, I said, I will tell you when it's time to pull the whistle string. And that's all I'll say.
Like Lucy did on the train trip back from Hollywood.
That wasn't a whistle string.
No, that was the emergency brake.
That was the emergency brake,
yeah.
Right.
No, but look, I limit the scope of the information you're getting, if only to keep your head together. And it's not like either of us are going to lie to you and make stuff up. We've been around long enough. You know from all the things that I've done over the years and what you've done over the years, if we say to worry, which is extremely rare, then worry. The rest of the time, don't worry. Right? Does that work for you?
Couldn't say it any better.
I'm sorry, I went on this rant because I've been thinking about this the last couple of days. I just,
and this is a catharsis now.
Yeah.
We're going through.
Well, look, this all started long before, but I think it really pushed it front and center was the November 15th system, which as much as the forecasts were low, okay, they were not non-existent. And the two facts that seem to get away from all of this are A, that both you and I said for days that even if it was just a coning to a couple of inches, that evening commute was going to be a disaster. We both said it in public, on Facebook Lives, on our TV stuff, the TV stuff that we did, and it's still somehow that part of the equation we got lopped into everybody else. And the fact is that municipalities do not budget for November snow removal. It would have required a massive authorization of overtime, and they weren't going to do that. So that's something that you need to take up with your town, okay, or your city or your state.
Ask them the next time you have a meeting, if you could attend some of these meetings, just ask the executive who is the head of your town or whatever like that, say, I would like you to open the books and tell me how much you spend in November for snow removal. And surprise, I don't think they don't.
They budget for December, January, February, March. I don't think they budget for April, but then at least if they didn't spend the money in those 4 months, they can then spend it in April. But they do not budget for November. Anyway, end of rant, because you and I both have to go.
9:54.
9:54. Francis Benoit, nice to see you. Scott Briller, as always. You're on every show that I do. It's amazing, Scott.
Look at all these top fans you've got.
Yeah, I got like over 300 now.
Wow.
That's so cool. I don't do that, by the way. That's Facebook's algorithm figures out who my top. Addison told me today, by the way, he's one of my top fans.
Right,
which I knew all along. I really did.
He should get a badge now, or a Medal of Honor, or whatever.
Well, he gets that little top fan icon
okay.
thing.
Well, there you go.
All right. All right, so folks, if you haven't done so already, download my free weather app on Google Play and on the App Store.
We've got it.
You downloaded it on the phone.
Well, no, not on the phone.
Okay.
But my wife watches now on her iPad.
All right.
Believe it or not.
Oh, good.
We've got another fan.
Awesome. But you still didn't put it on your phone.
Well, I'm in here with you, Joe. I mean...
No.
I mean, I look at all the stuff that you look at. We both are interacting with each other.
Okay.
So...
What are you trying to say, Joe? You haven't downloaded my app on your phone.
I'll put it on.
You have to. Okay.
My wife will put it on.
All right, and then you have to actually turn the phone on in order to use the app.
The phone is on.
Okay, just because you'll get all these notifications all at once.
Okay.
All right, so download it, folks. It's for free. It's on Google Play for Android, and it's on the App Store for the iPhones. And Joe and I will be back tomorrow night. So have a great night, and we'll see you tomorrow.
See you tomorrow.